And hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Being Shot Degens podcast with your host, Studying the Shrine. And yet again, we have to do, sadly, a redo that we already recorded in person with our boy, Alex Yano. But it's not unfortunate because we get to talk to him again because we love this guy. Yano, welcome back.
Thank you, fellas. No, honor again. And we'll try and make sure this one's better than the last one. That last one's a practice run. And I appreciate it. I probably said some things that I can correct now. So
A practice one indeed, but we did get to take a shot in person. But we'll, just for sakes, as you know, we will be taking another shot today with you boys. So here's cheers to that.
Yeah.
To the Sonics and to Alex Yano coming back on the pod. Danny with his essential water. Cheers, boys.
I'm out of alcohol. Let's go,
Cheers.
baby. Bring it back.
There we go. We're ready.
All right, Danny, kick it off.
Man, we're 37 days away from the NBA, but that's another topic. Anyways, Yano, last time we had you on, we're talking to you about Washington State basketball, March Madness. It was a hell of a time. Since then, you have gone to Stanford now as the director of basketball ops there. Just talk us through a little bit about like that transition, how it went down, and how you've been doing so far over there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously that year was quite the year. Pretty special. Only time I've been to the NCAA tournament. So, it was a really cool group of guys that really, I feel like, rallied around kind of the school, what the community is all about, and made a really solid team out of it. And it was quite the experience. I mean, going to Omaha, getting to play, a game in the NCAA tournament. We had the late game. It was like the 8 p.m. game or whatever. And, all day you're watching the games before, the earlier games, and you just see your game up in the corner. It was kind of a surreal feeling just to know that, that was going to be where you were going to be that night. And, obviously everybody says, just want to make the tournament. But once you get there, you definitely want to at least win one game. You don't want to waste your time, or, you want to be one of those teams that gets to kind of advance. And luckily we beat Drake and moved to the round of 32 and faced a really good Iowa State team. But quite an experience I probably will never forget, to be able to go back to Washington State and kind of have a year like that. And my first year as a full-time staff member. And, I was only about a year and a half removed from graduating from there. So, things moved really quickly and it was quite the opportunity. But obviously Coach Smith took the job at Stanford after we finished up that season. And it's been a crazy experience. I've really loved getting to be down here in California, be here in Palo Alto. And it's been a new challenge for sure. It's been a little bit different job, a little bit different responsibilities. But, our whole coaching staff originally, our first year down here, came over from Washington State. So there's a lot of continuity. Obviously, this is now year, I think, 5 with working with Coach Kyle Smith. Just being able to know what message we're trying to provide, having a little bit more experience on just kind of, how we create the culture, how we want to sustain our culture, and, just how he prefers things, definitely helps me a lot in my job. And it might be a new school, might be kind of new resources, but at the end of the day, a lot of the things that we want to do are things that we've been doing, from the Washington State days. So that's helped me a lot. California is a really special place. I've really enjoyed just, seeing the sun, being from Colorado, I'm a big golfer. So just having the sun out even, and, at any time, over Christmas, I could probably go get around to golf, and, not really the white Christmas anymore, but, seeing the sun and just having it be like 70 to 90 degrees every day. It's been really special. And last year at Stanford, we had a great year. Got to coach another pro in Maxime Reynaud, and he led us to, a 21 win season, got to play in the NIT. Which was really special too. So we've had already a lot of early success down here, which has been awesome. And I think we're really looking forward to kind of continuing that and, carrying that momentum from last year into this new challenge this year.
Yeah, I want to expand on that a little bit, having Maxime getting drafted to Sacramento, staying in California, which is awesome to see for you guys. So he's not too far away from you, but also for the fact that this is your 3rd pro that you've helped coach in that going to the NBA now. How does that feel like, in just, knowing that you made an impact on these guys getting to the league in some sort of way?
Yeah, obviously, I think, really fortunate now, especially in the past 2 years, to gain a couple people that hopefully I can steal NBA tickets from, and Max and Jalen and Isaac. And each one of them just been really cool to follow their journeys. They're all really special in their own ways. But getting to coach Max last year, he's probably one of the more pure talents I've ever seen and gotten to be around on a daily basis. He's so intelligent. I mean, he was a double major at Stanford and was, possibly one of the better players in the ACC last year. Averaged a triple or a double-double. His whole resume is just so impressive. So to be around something like that definitely gave me kind of the welcome to what a Stanford athlete, what a Stanford student's like. And it was really cool to just see how, how mature and how poised with all these responsibilities that he has. He still showed up every day at practice with a great attitude, with a great work ethic, and a pro work ethic, which obviously got kind of proven it with him going in the second round this past year. Really cool to be around that. I wish I was that kind of guru who could just, look at a guy and be like, oh, this guy's going to be a pro. Our coaching staff does a little better job at that. My job's to do a little bit more behind the scenes stuff. But, with Jalen, Isaac, two really incredible people too, that, some things are very common, really intense work ethic, a love for the game, a passion to be great. I think every single one of those guys definitely, at some point early on in the relationship, made it very vocal that making it to the next level and playing at, at the NBA level was a goal of theirs. So to be able to see that come to fruition and just to, follow their journey, be a little bit of part of their journey. It's stuff, I pinch myself still about it. Just, you don't really quite think it's true. And, I can now say I know a couple people in the NBA and, I'll see them on ESPN and hopefully they still respond to my text or answer a call here and there. That'll be pretty cool. But I know they're going to be quite busy in the kind of next stage of their life. But yeah, it's been really special just to be a part of all their journeys.
Yeah, man. Max, you talk about pure talent, dude. That guy, what was it, 20 and 10 last year? Just straight bucket. And I feel like his style of play is really going to translate to the league. So exciting stuff, man. Gotta love it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, his ability to shoot the three and especially, handle the ball, a lot of the 5-out stuff that the NBA runs, being able to kind of make good reads, make good decision maker, great passer, and just a really dynamic piece on the offensive side of the ball, especially. So I'm excited to see where it goes. Had a pretty good summer league and we'll build on that and, hopefully gets a couple of chances, but with the Kings this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So another thing I wanted to talk about is you talk about your kind of transition from WC to Stanford. You're there for the first year for Stanford going to the ACC, which is huge, which feels weird because, we've all grown up as Stanford's a Pac-12 school. So, you left from WCU going to Stanford as a Pac-12, but just behind the scenes being a part of the staff of, Stanford athletics and what the transition has been like going to ACC and what you've noticed at least.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something no one handed us the handbook to say this is how things are done. I think that was one of the big challenges last year was very experimental and just in the fact that, we were really doing things for the first time ever, and we luckily, we're a winter sport or fall, late fall sports. So, women's volleyball and football, they were the first to kind of to get out there and just kind of see what these road trips would look like. So we definitely tried to piggyback and learn as much as we could just from their experiences from being on the road. But obviously basketball travel is a little bit different than football travel. They're usually gone from a Thursday. They'll leave Thursday night. They're there Friday, get accustomed to kind of the area, and then they play Saturday, and they're probably on a flight after the game Saturday night. So, that travel doesn't quite relate, but we still wanted to figure out kind of what this would all look like. And it was a little bit of a challenge, but I think our coaching staff and, our players really took a good mindset of kind of like, this was what we signed up for, even though we might not have known what it was going to entirely look like, we knew we were going to be traveling a good amount. And obviously there's nothing really we can do about it, but, keep a good attitude and keep a good mindset towards, our objectives and trying to, just keep winning games on the road, no matter where they put us. So we got one really good road win and going to North Carolina last year, which was super special. And I think some of the, arenas and just, away trips that we took, it was really cool just to see, got to go to Duke last year, got to go to North Carolina, Notre Dame, Louisville, some of the better college atmospheres in the country. And, especially a place like Cameron Indoor or the Dean Dome where, you've probably watched, 100 games, growing up as a child, on the TV, and just to be there in person and experience that was pretty incredible. So, there was, obviously the flights were maybe a little bit longer than just going from, Seattle to Eugene or something like that. But I think there was a lot of good things that came out of it. A lot of really cool things that, were, really good memories that I'll have now. Again, we definitely still might not have the perfect, mixture or perfect game plan for how this is all going to look. We're still, very, very new to this whole kind of experience, but I think with 1 year down, we definitely have a lot of the questions have been answered so far. And, I think we've got a good game plan again for this year to attack it in the best way we possibly can. So it was definitely an adjustment. Obviously grew up, like you kind of said, grew up watching the Pac-12. That was a big part of my childhood. Obviously being at Washington State as a manager and doing my job out there, kind of had a good experience in, just knowing what the Pac-12 road trips kind of looked like, whether it be Tempe or Tucson to the LA schools, the Oregon schools, wherever you were going. I would, some of these places I've been visiting now that would have been like the third or fourth time. So definitely have a little better picture. A lot of the places in the ACC I've never quite been to. So, again, it's really cool to experience all these things, and it's definitely a blessing of the job to be able to travel the country a little bit and see some new places. But for someone to be in charge of kind of the behind the scenes and making sure things are on time or what resources are around, not my favorite feeling going to places that I don't quite know. It's a lot of kind of learning on the fly, but all in all, really, really cool experience for sure.
And talking about the impact of, the cross country travel, do you think it affected the guys at like the start of the season and they kind of acclimated just with that whole different, schedule and all that, or were they kind of able to get adjusted before the game and be ready to go?
Yeah, I think we had a really good game plan going on last year. I think a lot of our mindset was to kind of keep everybody on West Coast timing. So a lot of our breakfasts, we wouldn't really start the day until 11 a.m. or 11:30. So really not getting up and going until early afternoon, which I think helped everyone. Even though we might have been getting in at 8 p.m. or something to the hotel and kind of having lights out, and guys are still kind of on our West Coast time zone, having the ability to just kind of not be rushing and feeling like you had to, get up super early in the morning, and being able to kind of keep guys on a pretty good pattern, I think helped us a lot. I think as you go on, obviously we would leave on a Monday morning, have our first game on Wednesday, leave after our Wednesday game to head to the second place and then play our game on Saturday. So, Wednesday or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're feeling pretty good. I think Friday, Saturday, you're winding down a little bit, probably want to be home a little bit more than if we were just right around the corner. Again, I think we had a really good attitude and we had a really good game plan and going into what travel is going to look like. I think our guys are, they're champions. I think that's one of the cool things working at Stanford is just I think the level of athlete and the level of person is just a whole new level with, the players on our team. And I think they took a really mature approach to it and just being able to adapt something like that and, doing everything they could to make sure that, they were still able to perform at the highest level possible. Again, I think it's really impressive to see 18 to 22-year-olds be able to kind of make that commitment and make that decision towards, the betterment of the team and the betterment of the program. So, again, I think we don't get to really control, where they're going to put us or where they're going to fly us. Control what we can control. Coach Smith always says having a good attitude and, having a good work ethic towards things, those are kind of the foundation of our program. So, those are things we just try and build on in every scenario we can to approach things and keep, the culture of our program at the place we want it to be.
Real quick, I know we're just talking about ACC and Stanford, but I know you're a Pac-12 guy at heart. You grew up that way. What do you think about the new Pac-12 in general? We finally got a full conference now. I'm a huge Zags fan, grew up a Zags fan my whole entire life. Obviously, I'm a Cougs fan too. And it's very different now that we have Texas State as well. I just want to hear your thoughts, Zach, as a diehard Pac-12 guy since the day you were born. So,
yeah, obviously going to look a little bit different. If there ever is a day maybe where it goes back to the old Pac-12, that'd be pretty cool. But
yeah,
I think
obviously.
it's really exciting. I think obviously for the Washington State, Oregon State side of things to now have a little bit more confirmed future and a little bit more of a foundation of what the upcoming years are going to look like. I think as an alum or, knowing a lot of people around that, everybody takes a little bit more of a deep breath than we might have been in 2 years ago where, what conference we were going to be in. We were kind of the odd man out and weren't really getting where we wanted. So I think it's a really good thing for them, especially just to be the kind of foundational pieces of the conference. But obviously, I think it's going to be a really good basketball league. I mean, you're bringing in San Diego State, Utah State, Boise State's been really good. Colorado State has, definitely cared about basketball and been really good in the past couple of years. I missed a couple. I know Fresno, Texas State, obviously bringing in Gonzaga on the basketball side of things kind of gives you your big kind of national kind of powerhouse, at least, if they're able to kind of continue what they've been doing from the WCC. So I think it'll be really cool to see how it evolves. Obviously, I think we all understand now as, college fans that the current dynamics are probably not the forever dynamics of what college athletics look like. So how does, a couple of years, where do the Arizona State's land or, even maybe a Stanford or Cal or, some of those teams that took a big kind of money cut to join some of these conferences, to have some stability for the future, are they able to sustain that? And, do they kind of come back and, does a West Coast kind of powerhouse conference kind of rise out of kind of the aftermath of this first kind of realignment? So I think it's really cool. I think college athletics, obviously, it's changed even a lot since, I got into it in 2020. It's forever evolving. And I think we're just really in a very interesting time for, next 5-10 years. There's going to be a lot of change and a lot of kind of new things in the college landscape. And, the universities that are able to adapt and be able to kind of stay one step ahead of things, those are the ones I feel like are going to, be able to kind of come out on top of this thing. But I guess we'll see.
You talked about, kind of like the differing in responsibilities from Wazoo to now being at Stanford. Like, what would you say is the biggest, maybe not necessarily change, but maybe something you've taken on, something that you didn't necessarily have as a responsibility or a duty at Washington State and you do now at Stanford?
Yeah, I think some of the maybe overall responsibilities have stayed the same. I think one of the biggest things, obviously the differences was when I came back to Washington State, obviously I'd already had 4 years of experience, knowing what the university is. And obviously with my dad going to school at Washington State too, or, grew up around the university a lot. So whether it be academics or, where to get a good meal or whatever, a lot of these kind of external questions about the university I'd already had answered going into the job, which again is a really big part of the decision making process that I get to make for the team. So I think that was probably the biggest change, was just when coming down to Stanford, just not having that local knowledge per se that I had at Washington State. It was a new area. I didn't really know. I don't really know a lot of people that went to Stanford or even had only been there twice, I think, from road trips from Washington State. So, a lot of it was really new off the bat. And even like going from Pullman to living in, the Bay Area, it's a big change. That was something that I probably wasn't quite, weighing into the, I guess plan coming down here. But, it's a lot different than having, about 5 to 10 stoplights to sitting in 30 to 45-minute traffic every day. So it was a big change in a lot of different levels. I think it is really cool to see just the culture of Stanford and how much of a brand it is. Kind of maybe silly as it sounds, was able to go to the Final Four this past year, and being able to talk to other coaches, build more connections, and having kind of that Stanford name to my name is, just you're able to shake a couple more hands than I was in the past. As that's kind of the truth of the situation. But it's been really cool. Obviously, you're surrounded by really wealthy area. A lot of really, really, I don't know, wealthy and, successful alums that went to Stanford and that have direct ties to the basketball program as well. So it's been really cool just to be on campus every day. It's a really beautiful campus as well. And, it just kind of feels like you're in paradise. The sun's always out and, there's just really good vibes around the campus about kind of, even the shape of athletics, us coming in with us having a good year last year and Andrew Luck coming on the football side of things to kind of turn that thing around. There's a lot of good energy towards the Stanford athletic department right now. So it's really fun to be a part of it.
So just real quick, for those who don't know, we've talked to you quite a bit about it, but just kind of explain what your role is as director of basketball operations just a little bit.
Yeah, no, for sure. I try and easiest way to explain it is I do a lot of things behind the scenes to make sure that we're prepared and ready to do what the team wants to do. So last year a lot of my responsibilities were financial responsibilities to team travel to team scheduling, and then also just kind of the point of contact for the program. So if anybody's trying to contact some of our coaching staff, wants to come to practice, MBA scouts are trying to get intel on kind of what's going on here at Stanford, I get to kind of be the front lines and help kind of direct that to the situation, or the person that it needs to go to. So obviously helping out our assistant coaches, like I mentioned before, a lot of our assistant coaches, we've had some change this year, but that first year, our entire staff was the exact same. And we had the additions of Matt Elkin, who's now an assistant coach at Columbia, and Eric Revenow, who's our general manager, who came from Oregon State. But a lot of the coaches I worked with last year, I had a really good relationship with, Coach Smith and Coach Shaw. I've now worked with for 5 years. Coach Wayne Hunter, this will be year 3. Jeremy Harding, year 3. I might be missing somebody, but either way, it helps a lot in the day to day, just knowing again what people want to see, what they want on whether it be, them scouting for a game and knowing how they like things in a particular way to what Coach Smith wants, on a particular day or, helping him out with whatever he needs to. It's really nice knowing the person already, just having that kind of familiar connection where we're able to just communicate on a higher level and get things done at just better than if we, didn't know each other at all. So it's been cool. This year I hopefully we'll be able to get to do a little bit more basketball side of things. We've brought in assistant general manager Amanda Leland, who has been awesome, and it's been really cool to work with. We'll be taking a little bit of my responsibilities from last year, and I'll be able to do a little bit more on the recruiting side of things, and hopefully scouting. I think a big thing I can bring to the program is, again, just my experience with working with the staff, and it helps a lot. Just make sure we're prepared, and that they're comfortable with what we got going on. So,
How many visits a week do you think you have? Oh, we have comments. Let's see here.
how many visits?
We do have a comment real quick. It's from Frank. Frank asks, "Does working for Stanford get you perks with any other sports teams?"
As in, like, professional level?
I'm
Or
guessing it didn't say specifically, but
That's probably
yeah, I
yeah.
mean, thankfully, I'll give if we're talking about jobs or anything, obviously a lot of credit. Coach Smith has given me every single opportunity in basketball, and for him to be able to bring me down to Stanford has been, just quite a pleasure to be able to still work with him. He's
Mhm.
the best boss I'll ever have. So I would credit him before I credit maybe Stanford. He's a really well connected man and really well respected, and him too, now having the Stanford name, he's turned around a lot of programs that being able to just be around him and be kind of a student of his philosophies and his mindset and kind of program foundations has been really cool. But yeah, I mean, Stanford, there's a lot of connections. Joe Lacob, of course, the Lacob family, they're the owner and high up management, and for the Golden State Warriors, right down the road, where it's been really cool. Got to meet Kirk Lacob last year, so that's been really great. Obviously, just even having pro sports teams close with the Sacramento Kings, the Golden State Warriors, to the Stockton Kings, the Santa Cruz Warriors. There's a lot of professional basketball teams that are really close, and been able to build a fair amount of connections just with kind of being in the area, which has been really cool. So, and then obviously like Landry Fields, he's no longer the general manager for the Atlanta Hawks, but another guy who's a Stanford grad who's shown that there's a lot of basketball, a lot of passion for basketball, and that the power Stanford can take you to the toppest of mountains that you want to go to. So, it's been really cool just to be around that again. And, obviously, with having professional talents too these past couple of years with Max and Jalen and Isaac, it's really cool to have, scouts from different, NBA teams across the country calling in and being able to, build a connection and, talk 30 minutes about, either players or kind of what's going on or at Stanford. So, yeah, I think it's really just opened the door to kind of a whole new networking window that I've been trying my best to capitalize on.
I was just asking Yano, how many visits do you have a week? Is it like a number that you were kind of expecting? Is it more than you were expecting? What does that kind of look like?
As in like recruit visits or
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we plan those out a little bit more in advance. So we probably do anywhere between like 15 to 20 a year, which is cool. We bring, the kid or their family on campus and show them around, kind of give them a tour of the place. They'll watch practices. They'll get to, meet with Coach Smith. And yeah, I think it kind of depends. I think the recruiting in general, obviously, it's changed a little bit in the past couple of years with the transfer portal and the prominence of that. And you add NIL to that. Obviously, the season gets done. I think the big misconception about like recruiting is that, since we just, maybe played our last game or got knocked out of the NIT, we have a big break, and when the reality of the fact is that, we're pretty much the next day starting to work on what, next year's team's going to look like and figure out who's staying, who's going, what positions do we need to fill? What are we going to look like next year? So that happens really quick. And, thankfully this past year, we only had 2 transfers. A lot of other teams get decimated by, 6 to 8 kids. So, it was still a really busy spring. We were obviously trying to make improvements in some areas, and having to replace Maxime was, definitely a big kind of area for us. But, it kind of depends. This year it might be 20, but if we end up having kids transfer or whatever, then, you're really just bringing kids to campus all the time. You're just trying to fill the rosters. So it can get pretty hectic. It is cool. Stanford campus is really beautiful, and it's really cool to show off for sure.
Yeah, expanding on the NIL for what you can and can't tell us. Obviously, there's a lot of things, but just being behind the curtains of it all, of just how it's progressed over the years, especially now going from a program like Wazoo, where we did struggle with some of the NIL stuff here and there, what we can and couldn't do, just kind of limited. But and going to Stanford, where maybe the circumstances aren't exactly the same, but just different in general. Just kind of talk about like how NIL has looked like behind the curtains for you.
Yeah, I think it's been interesting because I've really seen, I've been in basketball enough to really just see the development of it all. So I think my second year as a manager was kind of the first time I'd ever heard of it, or it was really becoming, a prominent thing. And, the deal might have been for, 20 to 50,000, that was a big contract back then, for the first year. That was your star players, maybe an exit that amount of money. And then maybe the year after kind of maybe doubled. Maybe you started to see six-figure deals a little bit more. Um, and maybe the biggest deal in the country was anywhere between 250,000 to 500,000 ish. And then it's just kind of exponentially grown from there. Where now in today's day, we're well over the seven-figure mark, and it's a lot more vocal. You see guys like Arch Manning or Cooper Flag or AJ DeVance, they're making, 4 to, 6, 7, $8 million deals, which is kind of crazy. Obviously Stanford's committed to it. We're committed to winning at a high level. And with that comes, the NIL landscape. So, obviously won't get probably too in depth with what we're doing, but it is really crazy to see how much money is kind of getting thrown out there. And I think there's pros to it. There's cons to it. Obviously it kind of creates a free agent aspect, which I know is a lot of people complaints to kind of how college sports look like now. But at the same time, it's also keeping a lot of top tier talent in collegiate athletics, where maybe a couple years ago, pre NIL, you're getting a lot of, freshmen leave for the draft or, big time players are usually, trying to take advantage and getting out because they needed to start making money or whatever, saw it as a bigger opportunity. Now with so much of a financial commitment, at least for now in the college landscape, should be able to see a lot more players or, just stay within the game, because they're still making good amount of money, or, they've been making good money from freshman to sophomore to junior to senior year, where maybe they're not chasing that, oh, am I going to be a second round pick? Well, already got a good amount of money made and, I'm going to make X amount, as a senior. I think it's going to be interesting again, just to see, is there ever a salary cap? Is there ever something that, some sort of restrictions on, what a player can make? These are all questions that are kind of getting answered on the fly. So, it's definitely interesting to get a behind the scenes look at it. I think at times it's also very chaotic and it's a frenzy and frustrating at times for, it's definitely a new era in college sports. So yeah, it'll be really cool to see how it evolves into what, it's definitely not going away. I know that. So, how do things change from here is a big question for sure.
Yeah, obviously it sucks from us seeing, John Mateer leave us for $3.8+ million, and now he's a Heisman favorite right now in the college football. You make a really compelling point of which I don't think people see the biggest impact when it comes to basketball specifically because of so many guys that went to the G League coming out of high school. Now the G League was competing for these top talents in this college athletics, but now they're bringing the NIL deal in is kind of bringing those guys back to, like Cooper Flag, exactly what you're just talking about, just going back to Duke for 1 year before going to the draft. So I really love the competitiveness that's bringing in for basketball standpoint, because you don't have that in football. You have to go to college to go to football and go to the NFL draft pretty much. So it's a whole different point when it comes to basketball, in my opinion. So
For
good to see.
sure. And I think it will be interesting too. It's definitely become a little bit more of an intriguing option for international talents. Some kids that might have just stayed and played for a pro club back home and then entered the draft that way, might be seeing more. The game is already so global and the college game is already getting so global as well. I mean, geez, I'd probably make players from 12 to 13 different countries, which is insane. But it could grow even more. And again, just so much talent is now flooding into the game where it is going to be interesting. And hopefully, a bigger talent pool obviously makes better, more teams hopefully better. I think it just creates a more competitive environment for everything. So try and look at it, bright side, glass half full kind of approach to it. But obviously I can see the other side where, obviously Washington State, if you want to bring football in, we've had we've been the feeder team for sure, losing Cam Ward, losing John Mateer, losing a lot of people. But that part of it isn't fun by any means. So again, it's the new age for sure.
Kind of going off that NIL stuff, kind of looking at the international pool, like you had mentioned, Yano. Matt and I have talked about it before on previous episodes. It really is crazy when you look at the top picks from like the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 years of the draft and how it's all international players. And these guys, yeah, they just play for their countries. They play club and then they come over and shock everyone, and now for the fact that they can start coming to play in college and really just add more talent to the college game is it's kind of exciting. It's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out in the next like 4 or 5 years for sure.
No, for sure. I think as the college, especially, I mean, obviously college athletics or, D1 basketball definitely is very prominent, pool for the NBA draft, but with more talent, it might become the future league for, NBA prospects, which would be really cool to see. Obviously teams are able to recruit a high level and those kids are probably going to cost, a fair amount of money. It's the teams that are committed to, paying that are going to be able to, stay a step ahead of all this stuff and, kind of retain that talent. So it'll be cool to see.
Enough about work talk. We can talk work all day, and we appreciate you telling what you can. But what's going on in your life? How you doing going forward? How's your career progression looking like? Everything like that.
Yeah, I think life's good. I think last year was definitely a little bit of a adjustment, just getting to accustomed to California. Really definitely feels a lot more like home now, which has been great. I live in Sunnyvale, California now, so just a little better area that I really like. And again, just nice knowing where things are, and just not feeling like the new kid on the block as much. Just having a little bit more, um, you just being a little bit more comfortable with kind of what a daily life or what a week looks like. I've been really starting to enjoy it. Obviously, got some golf in the summer, which was great. So trying to keep that as fresh as possible. But things are good. I think this is a really exciting year for me, being able to hopefully do a little bit more on the basketball side of things. And obviously, I really enjoyed being director of ops, at Washington State and Stanford. But it's probably not a forever position for me, just with the timeline of how usually someone in my role I usually kind of try and move on to coaching or get into maybe an NBA front office or, some sort of professional kind of front office. So, I think this year we'll be able to experience some things that I haven't really done yet in college basketball and kind of, try it out to see if I like it. And if I do, it might change my direction that I want to go in. But for now, I'm really definitely interested in going probably to the NBA level in some capacity. I'm trying to find my way into some sort of front office role or some assistant front office, assistant general manager type position, which would be really cool. Just obviously been in the college game this is, I think, year 6, I think. But, I really don't have that much experience at the NBA level, and they are definitely vastly different just, from the fact that a lot more people in the organization. Obviously, for our staff and team, it's probably a total of 30 people. Obviously, when you get to the NBA size of things, it's a lot bigger than that. So would be really something really cool to focus. Obviously, as we've talked about even on this podcast before, I've just always seen myself doing something in sports, and I've definitely been really blessed and thankful to have the opportunities that I've had so far. And, a lot of credit to Coach Smith and Coach Aranganat, who, have trusted me and put me in some positions that, I probably didn't even see myself being in and had the belief in me. And, that's meant a lot to me in my career. Just really excited to be able to learn from, especially Coach Smith this next upcoming year and get one more year under my belt to, just kind of see what this next opportunity. I really have never tried to set too much expectations on what this all looks like. I mean, like I've mentioned before, I started as a team DoorDash driver, so not didn't think I was going to be a director of ops by any means. So, and it kind of happened. So I'm just trying to keep a level head and kind of approach every day that I can with just a good attitude and just keep trying to get as much done at the best of my ability. And I've had a lot of confidence and I've had some success in the past doing that. So I think that mindset for me is going to be really important. And, again, I'm really excited to see what this next thing, if the Sonics could come back and I could move up to Seattle, I think that would be a very intriguing option. I'll count the days down with you guys till that becomes reality.
We need you in there so you can get us in there. We're counting on you here.
If I ever get there, then it's in the contract that I get 3 seats to every game. I mean, that's going to be a lock.
Good.
And
That's what I like to hear.
Put the climate pledge ban on Patrick O'Neal too. Make sure that guy's watching from outside. So
see ya.
We've got a couple. It's just it's a early kind of to-do list for if that ever becomes reality. So I'll build on it a little bit.
I completely agree on the Patrick O'Neal ban.
Speaking of just life in general, how was I think it was DeWolf's wedding?
It was Ethan Kramer's, but DeWolf was
Ethan
there.
Kramer's. That's what. Yeah, how was Kramer's wedding?
So yeah, to educate the audience, I did take a little bit of a vacation, which was probably a little bit longer than it needed to be, but was able to do a lot of cool things. And obviously, see you boys I appreciate y'all, but being able to see you guys up there in Seattle was super fun. Probably not favorite moment, but one of the highlights of the trip was going to Seattle Sounders game, which I did not think I would quite enjoy. Never been to a soccer game in my life. We had probably the time of our lives. That was a great day. So for anybody that hasn't gone to a Sounders game, I highly recommend. But yeah, I went from there to Seattle to Spokane for a little bachelor party. And the guy, Ethan Kramer, it was for his wedding. He was the equipment manager at Washington State. He was a freshman when I was first starting with the program as a junior. So we were 2 years together as a manager, which was, really cool. We were kind of yin and yang we were the two road managers that traveled my senior year. So spent a lot of time together, and it was really, really special to be a part of kind of his special day. And then when I got brought back to Washington State as director of ops my first year, it was his senior year. So, he's one of those guys that has seen probably more about kind of what this experience and what my career path has looked like more than almost anybody else, which has been really cool. And to be there with him was really awesome. It was good. Got to see Rap, got to see Matt DeWolf, Will Berghardt, got to kind of have a little, Washington State 22-23 reunion, which was really cool. And Coach Smith actually officiated the wedding too. So, it was really, really cool to kind of have everybody together again and be up back in the kind of Palouse area was really fun too. So it was really enjoyable, but definitely back at work and probably won't be taking a vacation for quite some time, but it's all right. We got it all out. We got all the wiggles out now. So I'm ready to go.
Dude, what a squad. I remember just how many times I used to have to walk by the Coug and I just see DeWolf, Rap, and Will all there together. Those three all the time, dude. I always just stop by and have a drink with them every time I saw them.
No, definitely made their rounds in Pullman. That's we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. I hope Rap behaved himself at the wedding.
Very much so. Very much so. He's growing up. The maturity is insane, Would have never thought I would say that.
Moving back home does something to a man, huh?
Yeah, I guess so.
This question, Denny, you wrote down, but kind of going into NBA a little bit as we're coming up October 21st, first day of the season coming up for us. We know you're from Denver. We know you're a big Denver guy. So Denny wrote down this question. He wants to know your top 5 Nugs of all time.
Top 5 Nuggets of all time. Well, definitely, got to start with Jokic. I think that brought us a championship. And got to kind of really see the full development of him. Can't remember when did he get drafted? What was it? 2016, 17? I can't remember. You could check back another time. But anyways, maybe it was earlier. But definitely Jokic is up there for me. I was part of I think it was it elementary school? Yeah. It was probably like 4th or 5th grade basketball team called the Big Shots, which was named after Chauncey Billups. So I'll throw him in there because that was like really early on Nuggets fandom. And you got to, I guess pair that with Carmelo for sure. That I remember definitely going to a couple Nuggets games when I was younger, and, it was him, Allen Iverson, J.R. Smith, Kenyon Martin, Nene, Eduardo Nahara. They were really, pretty loaded. So I probably will add a couple more, but definitely Jokic, Melo, Chauncey Billups. I've always been a big Jamal Murray fan. I don't know. I was at least really early on in his career, and like Bubble Murray was like one of the more like memorable things I remember of like watching basketball. So I'd probably throw him in there. 5th one's tough. J.R. Smith was super entertaining, so I kind of want to put him in there. Like it was just I loved him as a Nugget.
That pick, I'll take that.
Let's see. I just don't want. I feel like it's gonna be one of these things like 20 minutes, 30 minutes from now. I'm just gonna be like, I'm missing somebody. But no, we'll go with that. We'll go with basically like the 06, 07 Nuggets paired with Nikola Jokic. I think that's what I'll land on.
That's
for
fair.
Now.
That's completely fair.
Yeah, but yeah, great question.
That was a squad, bro. All those players you named.
Just
squad.
Could never get past Kobe.
I know.
They ran into Western. I remember watching that Western Conference Finals. It was. I'm pretty sure the Lakers swept us. I don't think it was much of a series. But
how do you feel about the Nuggets now?
I'm excited. I think they made some really good offseason moves for sure. Bringing back Bruce Brown. I really like the Cam Jordan trade with that Michael Porter Jr. So I think Valanciunas as a backup's a big deal. I think they're getting Holmes back, their first round pick from last year, which is exciting. They signed Tim Hardaway. So, or no, just say Cam Jordan. I think Cam Johnson. I messed that up. But anyways, I think a big thing. I mean, they took Oklahoma City to 7 games, which was I think farther than what I even thought. Just because it was really obvious, I think later on in probably in that beginning of the second round of the playoffs that Denver just had no depth. They were praying that Strother or Peyton Watson was gonna, put up 20 points basically, and that obviously didn't work. So it's nice to have a little bit more depth. I think it's really important having a really proven backup for Jokic. DeAndre Jordan's been solid past couple of years. He hasn't cost too much money, but we need a little bit more production since, when Jokic is in the game, I mean, he is our team, and obviously we just need a little bit better, 10 to 15 minute gap filler that, maybe you play them at the same time, even, have a little bit bigger lineup. But again, I think it just provides a little bit more protection. Still got Murray, you still got Aaron Gordon, you got Christian Brown, you still have Strother and Peyton Watson too. So, the bench is just looks just a little bit deeper, which I'm excited for. So, I'll say right now, Nuggets in 7 with whoever again, for the NBA Finals this year. But I'll definitely take them over the Thunder if we're throwing that out there. And no, I'm not buying all this Rockets hype either. So, I'm all in. Take me Denver with whatever. I'm taking it. I'll worry about it later.
Well, my next question was going to be, what is your predictions for the NBA this season? But I think I don't need to ask that one.
No.
Thunder and 5. I'm going to tell you right now.
We took Thunder to 7 games, and then we are a way better team. You cannot tell me the Nuggets are not a better team than they were last year.
They're a better team than they were last year, but we'll see what happens. I'm also kind of worried. I think their coaching was obviously just a shit show this last year. Yeah. Just how, firing, Mike just so sudden. And we'll see if their new coach is the truth or not. I guess getting a full season under his belt will be something. So,
yeah.
We'll see. Obviously, I'm not taking that. What did you say?
I said the West is going to be loaded.
Yeah.
It's going to be, with the Lakers, the Thunder, the Rockets, the Mavs. I mean, you throw the Warriors in there. It's Timberwolves. I think a winner's definitely coming out of Grizzlies. Jeez, Jalen Wells.
And Cedric Coward.
Yeah,
I know you weren't on the team with Cedric, but he's a kid.
Just missed him. But played against him a couple of times. Fortunately, we beat him a couple of times. But
yeah, that's all right. So I was going to ask about the NBA outcome. So, outcome this year for Stanford. What do you guys plan to do with, kind of replacing Maxime, and just what do you guys are looking forward to the season, or what's your game plan?
Yeah, I mean, again, obviously big question in the offseason was kind of the Max question, how we're going to replace him. And I thought we brought in a lot of talent, which is great. We brought in actually a former walk-on for us who was a D3 All-American, AJ Rahosi, who's great. Another piece that, has been in the program and kind of got his opportunity at a D3 last year to really play. He was a backup behind Isaac Jones, Oscar Clough, and Ruben Chinyalu. As much as, maybe Rahosi's a great player, he has a lot of really good competition up there at Washington State. That might have been the reason why he didn't play as much for us up there. But we're really excited about him. We also brought in a freshman, Oscar Gilte from Belgium, who was just got an incredible motor, really high-level rim runner, good finisher, good touch around the rim, can shoot it a little bit. And he's just going to be really physical, which out of a freshman, you don't really say that a ton. Usually the big knock is, they need to put on, 10 to 15 pounds or, they haven't played in that physicality. I think one of the advantages of bringing in international prospects is, a lot of these kids are playing against, more mature talent. They're not playing other 17 or 18-year-olds. They're playing in a, B league, or a B or A league in whatever country they're from against, real, mature adults. Being able to have that as a freshman, I think is going to be cool. And we're also bringing back Aiden Cameron last year, who was kind of Max's backup. He started a little bit for us at the power forward position too. So he'll be a little bit more of our veteran piece, kind of has already been there and done that. So we'll rely on him a lot. And he's made, great strides this offseason as well. So obviously it's going to look a little different. It's really hard to replace NBA talent. They don't just grow on trees, or else I think everybody would be good. So obviously really cool and really excited for Max, but we're really excited for this year. I think it's definitely going to be a little newer look team than we had last year, but we also brought back 11 players and brought back our backup point guard last year, who will be a focal point of our team, Benny Geeler, who's really taken unbelievable strides this offseason to really become a true leader for our team and has a goals of being one of the better guards in the ACC, which is exciting. And bringing back Chisholm Akpar, who is another forward that started for us a little bit last year. Ryan Agarwal started 30 plus games for us at at the 3. And then we brought in another junior college transfer, or no, Division II transfer from Dominguez Hills, Jeremy Dent Smith. Averaged 20 a game at Dominguez Hills last year. So we're really excited for what we got. And we had some talent. Donovan Young was a player. He kind of had some injury problems last year, but started a lot of games as a freshman last year that we're bringing back. Evan Stinson's another freshman that played for us last year. Anthony Batson, House Toure, another freshman that got kind of a taste here and there last year. Freshman to sophomore year is always usually kind of the biggest jump that a kid might take. They kind of start filling into their bodies, and they might gain that 10 to 15 pounds that they needed to. Really excited for that, just to see kind of their progression. Again, I think we have a really good recipe for what a program's supposed to look like. Can't guarantee how many wins, it'll turn out to. I'll trust Coach Smith and his philosophy. We've been able to turn around, at Washington State, and he's been able to turn around at a lot of different places. The recipe stays the same, and now we just got to, make it happen here at Stanford. So, it's a great challenge, and obviously get to play in one of the better basketball conferences at the D1 level. So we're ready for it. They had us picked, I think, second to last year, and we had a first round bye in the tournament. So we've been known to do that from time to time. So we really don't care too much about what people really think. We know the product's going to be there, and we're really excited for us to be able to build off that momentum we carried from last year.
Yeah, I trust Coach Smith with so many things. Obviously, finding 2 JUCO players with Jay Wells and IJ and coming up and getting them to the league, and one getting us back to the tournament and for the first time in years since the Klay Thompson days and stuff. And I trust Coach Smith's talent and his coaching so much. So you're under a great team.
Yeah, no, we're excited. We're really a lot of experience, very experienced coaching staff. I think we have 50 NCAA tournament appearances combined with the coaches we have. So, a lot of people that have seen really good basketball. So, again, it's our challenge to make that the case here at Stanford.
Yeah, I think you guys had a good run last year and just build on that momentum this year. Have you guys started practices?
Kind of. We've been doing kind of some summer workouts, and our first official day is September 22nd, when we'll really kind of hit the ground running. So we're excited. Been able to with Stanford on the quarter system. We had a pretty long fall where we had about 7 weeks where we were able to get kind of the new team together and do I think four 1-hour practices a week. So just kind of get a little bit of kind of the foundation set so that games are right around the corner. I think we play our first scrimmage like the middle of October, and then another one the end of October. And then before you know it, November, I think our opener's on November 4th this year. It's going to be here before we know it. So this time of year, it always just, it goes by a blink of an eye, and, just got to keep my head down and keep grinding. And, obviously the games, they make it super fun. The games are pretty awesome. So when you got that to look forward to, it's, definitely helps when you're feeling low a little bit.
Talking about how you're hoping to kind of be involved more on the basketball side, kind of walk us through that. What specifically would you be able to kind of like work with on the basketball side, and all?
Yeah, I think, again, being able to work with the staff that I've been working with for, again, for 4 out of the last 5 years or 5 out of the last 6 years, it's really nice. They've always given me the opportunities where, even if basketball things, as in like watching film or scouting or whatever it might look like, wasn't my main priority, they'd still let me kind of participate when the time allowed for it. But I think a big thing that I'm really looking forward to is hopefully being involved a little bit more in kind of our scouting of our opponents. So, player personnel and kind of sets teams run against us, being a part of kind of the strategic side of coaching and kind of the preparation side is something I've, seen from afar and kind of gotten to dabble here and there with, but hoping to be a little bit more hands-on with that process this year, which would be really cool. And again, I think just being around our coaching staff, whether it be film review, we're really heavy in the analytics side of things. So being more a part of our hustle stats, where we kind of analyze our film to create kind of values for us being able to determine, what players are kind of succeeding and failing in our program. So, those are probably the 2 main things that I would like to accomplish this year. But again, I've been fortunate to do a lot of different kind of various things within, the college basketball landscape. So whatever they need me to do, I just want to make sure I have the right mindset to accomplishing that first, and help out in any way I possibly can. So I know I've being around basketball, I'm definitely learned a lot so far in the past couple of years, and it's just hopefully another year this year to be able to kind of build on that, and just become more of a weapon on kind of the basketball side of things.
Hell yeah, man. Love it. Love to hear it.
Jans, you got any questions for us or anything you want to talk about?
No, I mean, I'll close it out with how I always do. I appreciate the hell out of both you guys, and obviously all the people up there in Seattle, or anybody who might have tapped into this to this episode. I mean, you guys have been the greatest support system I could ever ask for, and it was really great to just get up to Seattle for a little bit. That's always kind of my yearly reset, where just being able to be back to something super comfortable, and you guys always provide not just that, but a great time and great hospitality for it all. I'm very thankful. It's cool. I think Trent's now wife Lexi, we went out to a bar one day. I was hanging out with them, and she was like, "What does it mean to be so popular? Like, everybody just wants to hang out with Yano. Everyone wants to hang out with Yano." I was like, "I don't know what I did, but I'm sure grateful for it." And it's been really awesome to be able to go through this journey for sure. But the texts I get from you guys after big wins, or just being able to know that you guys are always kind of following what I'm doing, it helps a ton. And I really am grateful for it, and just really appreciate you guys. And another year down, another year of opportunity ahead of us. And I just super thankful that you guys are by my side through it all. And it's definitely the motivation that gets me through it. So I always just want to make sure, hopefully, appreciate getting another episode on this podcast, because obviously I'm a very frequent listener, even if I'm not a guest here. So you guys keep doing what you're doing. You guys are doing awesome things, and really, really appreciate you guys making me a part of it too.
We could have you on every episode. We would, honestly. We do love you. We love having you on here. We love following your career. We're happy with there's one of us guys out there that's going to help and be able to live the dreams and stuff like that, man. So we'll be here to support you. Go Cardinal. Obviously, go Cougs first, but we'll support your career no matter what.
No, appreciate it. Yeah, definitely go Cougs, go Card, go Mariners. Didn't talk about that real
go
quick.
Ners.
First place in the West.
Come on, baby. Come
12
on.
games
Which
left.
lives on.
Let's go.
Gentlemen.
Come on.
Sorry, Coach Smith, if the Mariners make it to the World Series, I'm going to have COVID or something, and I'll be up there. So
we got your tickets already.
I'm
have
amped. Dude, I'm so amped. So amped.
Dude,
it's been nice. I mean, I was getting a little nervous there. They rattled off 9 in a row. Definitely settles the brain a little bit.
Yeah, we got a big week in Kansas City and then in Houston for 3 more games. And that series will decide everything probably. So
Sunday night baseball too against Houston. It's gonna be
Sunday night baseball.
Wow!
Oh my God!
Wow!
And they got to win the series to keep the tiebreaker against them. So yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah,
wow.
I think it's tied 5-5 right now between.
Yeah.
It's. Gosh, they give us a heart attack, but it's hard being a Mariners fan because you just don't want to give up all your hope and just think that it's amazing, because they freaking disappoint you half the time. But guess what? Just exactly like Jared Dipoto said, they're winning exactly 54.4% of their games right now. So
pretty incredible. But I mean, again, they got to make the playoffs. Playoffs.
Yes, sir.
Playoffs are a must.
It is cool having games matter this late in the year. This is a very newer feeling. I've only experienced it a couple of times, so it's very fun.
Yeah. Gosh, go Nerds, go Hawks. Big win today.
Go Hawks.
Yeah, go Cougs.
37 days. 37 days, boys.
37 days.
Yes, sir. We'll be back for more preseason episodes for sure. Yes, sir.
A couple more preseason episodes coming up in end of this month and October. Make sure to keep updated. We'll get this Alex Yano episode posted soon for those who did not tap into the live. With that, bank is closed.
Peace.